Hello, I'm Simon Adebisi and welcome to highlights of the 2012 Formula SimRacing World Championship. Round 6 of the championship is the British Grand Prix, taking place around the historical Silverstone circuit. This track is commonly referred to as the home of British motor racing and has seen multiple configuration changes during its 60-year history. As well as several straights and many medium to high-speed corners, the current version also incorporates the slower infield arena section and provides the drivers with a wide variety of corners. Surprise news this week with the shock transfer of Morgan Moran, who has left the ATR team due to conflict with its manager and has now joined the Go Speed Racing team. Bono Huis once again blitzed the field in qualifying, gaining pole position by more than 0.3 of a second. ATR's reserve driver Jeffrey Reitfeld pulled a big surprise to set the second fastest time in only his second ever WC appearance. With his new team, Moran achieved a strong result for third, as did Twister's Frederik Nielsen in fourth place. Stoffel Vandoorne completed a good result for fifth, just ahead of his sister teammate Uros Musculi in sixth, who set his best ever qualifying result. John-Eric Saxon set the seventh fastest time, and for the third time in a row, GT Omega Racing got both of their cars inside the top 10, with Rasmus Tali in 8th and Rainer Room in 9th. Jim Paresis just made it into the second qualifying session in 10th place. Martin Gosby would have to settle for 11th at his home Grand Prix, beating out Peter Burlak in 12th and Jarkko Mikkonen in a disappointing 13th. The McCord team struggled, with Patrick de Wit only able to set the 14th fastest time, and on his return after a 3-race absence, David Greco qualified in 15th. To the race start, and Rietveld had a dreadful reaction to the lights, allowing Moran to easily cruise past. Vandoorne had a great launch and sneaked up Nielsen's inside to take fourth. With a better drive through turn 1, Moran challenged Huis into maggots and the Frenchman prevailed, forcing Huis to yield and relinquish the top spot. As the field snaked its way into Beckett's, things got ugly at the back when Chatsi Pantelis closed the door on Greco and he span, colliding with Gobi and causing Bayliss to lock up and spin off the track. Fortunately, Greco had no damage and Bayliss was able to keep his engine running. However, Gobi had lost his front wing and Chatsi Pantelis stalled in the grass. Down into Vale and there was plenty of side-by-side action. Saxon challenged Nielsen for 5th with the outside line around Club and came out on top. And meanwhile, Room and Paresis fought it out, with Room barely managing to hold on to his position. Nielsen then lost another place, with Rasmus Tali making an outside pass into Brooklands, and further behind, de Wit and Burlak were aggressively fighting for 11th position. After the first lap, Morgan Moran was leading the Grand Prix ahead of Bono Huis and the two ATR cars driven by Jeffrey Rietveld and Stoffel Vandoorne. Saxon was now in 5th ahead of Tali in 6th and Nielsen in 7th. Further behind, Patrick de Wit then attacked Paresis into Vale, but Burlak jumped on the opportunity to get on the inside. Unnecessary contact was made, pushing de Wit onto the grass, dropping him back to 12th. Lap 3, and a rare mistake from Rasmus Tali sent the Estonian spinning off the track, dropping the GT Amiga driver all the way down into 18th. Further behind, Burlak continued an aggressive charge, passing Jim Paresis into Stowe to move up into 9th. Patrick de Wit then also tried to jump on Paresis, but Mikkonen got involved, and with the 3 cars abreast through Club, de Wit lost out. The resulting bottleneck caused an unfortunate contact between Varga and Gosby, with the resulting damage prompting Martin Gosby to pit, ending any hope of a good result at his home Grand Prix. Patrick de Wit then tried to make a surprise pass into the arena, but Mikkonen was caught unawares and contact was made, resulting in de Wit stalling his engine, recording his first DNF of the season. More action in the midfield occurred 2 laps later when Jim Paresis attacked Burlak, but the Croatian didn't see Paresis coming and both cars lost control. Mikkonen happily passed both drivers to move up into 9th, with Peter Varga moving ahead of Paresis for 11th. At the front of the race, things were heating up, with Huis putting Moran under plenty of pressure. With a superior run out of the final corner, Huis used the toe and made a daring inside move. Moran broke early and tried to switch back to the other side, with the cars narrowly missing each other by a hair's width. The pair went side by side into maggots, but Huis stood his ground and ended up in front, back into the top spot. Down in 6th place, Frederik Nielsen was clearly struggling with his pace, and he was being forced to defend hard against Uros Musculi. A train quickly formed behind them, and on lap 8, three drivers got their entry into Copse wrong, with Burlak narrowly avoiding a collision with Jarkko Mikkonen. Burlak moved up further into 8th position with a classy outside pass on Reino Room through Brooklands. Mikkonen soon followed suit, passing Room into Maggots. Meanwhile, Rasmus Tali was making a fast recovery as both Gergo Baldi and Zavagreco struggled with traction. Musculi eventually prevailed over a struggling Nilsson, passing the Swede into Stowe for 6th. On lap 10, the first round of stops began. While Huis extended his lead over Moran, back in 3rd place Jeffrey Reitveld was held up as Giuseppe Marconi pitted, and Stoffel Vandoorne capitalised on the situation, passing his teammate into the opening corner. Saxon remained in a lonely 5th place, but otherwise the field order completely changed, with those pitting early seemingly gaining a big advantage. Fredrik Nilsson's day got worse as he was one of the last to pit and he missed his pit box, emerging way down in 13th place. Jim Parisas' early stop advanced the Greek driver up into 6th, and Rasmus Tali continued his strong recovery, taking 7th place away from Jarkko Mikkonen on track. Reino Room was having a bad day at the office, challenging Varga with a bold pass and losing out badly, dropping down into 14th place. On lap 20, it became apparent that several drivers had opted for a 4-stop strategy, including race leader Bono Huis. Parisas, Tali and Mikkonen also pitted, somewhat explaining their relatively quick pace. Huis still had 2 more stops to make, but he had created a large gap to Morgan Moran and was lapping substantially faster. John-Eric Saxon had also opted for a 4-stop strategy, and he had leaped ahead of the ATR duo of Vandoorne and Reitveld, though the faster-than-speed car would need to set an amazing pace to hold on to the position. Parisas remained in a comfortable 6th, ahead of Tali in 7th. Jarkko Mikkonen was in 8th place, and not far behind, the 3-stopping Uros Musculi was now in 9th, with Gergo Baldi in 10th and Peter Burlak in 11th. In the midfield, Nilsson's 3-stop strategy was being further compromised as he was held up by Peter Varga, and the Twister racer made a crucial but highly aggressive overtake into Brooklands to get out into some free air. Reino Room followed not long after, jumping on a small mistake from the Hungarian. Bono Huis came into pit lane for his 3rd stop, and he emerged out in 4th position. However, as he closed in on Vandoorne and Reitveld, his strategy suddenly looked to have hit a speed bump, with the Dutchman needing to clear both ATR cars on track as soon as possible. But the defending world champion had no difficulty whatsoever, quickly passing Reitveld up the inside into turn 1, and on the following lap, using a tow and his fresh tyres to make an easy pass on Vandoorne into Stowe. Morgan Moran would now have to drive to the limit, and after making his final trip into the pits, Huis was just 19 seconds out in front, but he still had another stop yet to make. While there was little overtaking happening on track, Fredrik Nilsson crucially passed teammate Peter Burlak for what was theoretically a virtual 11th place. Back in the free air, Nilsson began to set much faster lap times, catching those ahead of him. As the last of the drivers made their stops, the true order of the field began to take shape. Morgan Moran just managed to beat Bono Huis as the precision driver left pit lane, but the Frenchman would have it all to do, knowing that Huis was on a softer set of fresh tyres. Stoffel Vandoorne and Jeffrey Reitveld remained together in 3rd and 4th, and John-Eric Saxon looked certain to take 5th place. Jim Parisas emerged from the pits in 6th, just ahead of Uros Musculi and Fredrik Nilsson. Musculi and Nilsson had both leaped ahead of Rasmus Tali, but they were on the harder, more worn tyres, and Tali was hot on their heels. Nilsson made a rare mistake through Beckett's, nearly sliding off the track and handing his place to Tali. The Estonian then wasted no time, challenging Musculi down the hanger straight and pulling off an aggressive outside pass around Stowe to take 7th place. Fredrik Nilsson was soon attacking Musculi as well, and the Twister driver made an almost identical pass around the outside of Stowe to take 8th. Further behind, Jarkko Mikkonen had been leaped by Burlak, but as Mikkonen had fresher tyres, he was able to quickly catch the Croatian. Burlak desperately defended his 9th place, but after sustained pressure, the precision driver managed to make an aggressive pass into Brooklands. The Finn then carried on his strong pace and hunted down Musculi, making another bold pass into the arena section to gain 9th place. At the front of the race, it was clear who had the fresher tyres, with Huis all over the back of Moran. The Go Speed driver did everything he could to keep in front, but with 10 laps still remaining, it would be a tall order for Moran to keep Huis at bay. Huis made several attempts and Moran desperately defended his position, but eventually Huis gained a strong run onto the hanger straight, and after a near collision, Huis moved to the outside, passing Moran to retake the race lead. Moran had no answer, and Huis quickly disappeared into the distance. Taking win number 5 for the 2012 season, Bono Huis crossed the line 7 seconds clear of his main rival, winning the British Grand Prix on a 4-stop strategy. Although slightly disappointed, Morgan Moran finished in a much-needed second place, keeping his championship hopes alive and demonstrating that he is just as competitive with his new GoSpeed team. And rounding off the top 3, Stoffel Vandoorne claimed his second podium in just his 4th career start, achieving a very impressive result. Jeffrey Reitfeld crossed the line in an amazing 4th place in only his 2nd ever WC race. John-Eric Saxon continued his strong consistency, finishing a lonely race in 5th, and Jim Paresis demonstrated a return to form with an impressive 6th. Despite a spin on lap 3, Rasmus Tali clawed his way back up to 7th with a great drive. Fredrik Nilsson recovered after struggling badly in the first stint to claim 8th. Jarkko Miekkinen would have to settle for 9th, and AT Racing driver Uros Musculi was penalised after he was found to have driven outside the track limits on more than a quarter of his laps. This meant Peter Burlak was promoted to 10th, salvaging the final point. Bono Huis is now 60 points ahead of Morgan Moran, but with 9 rounds still remaining, Moran still has an outside chance to catch the defending world champion. Fredrik Nilsson has held on to 3rd, but Rasmus Tali is just 3 points behind. Saxon, Vandoorne, De Wit, Bowdy and Miekkinen are all now separated by just 3 points, with all drivers in a strong position. Paresis' great result has put the Greek driver back into the picture, tied with Lapchan in 10th. Despite taking the win, Precision Motorsports equalled ATR's points haul at Britain, with a gap remaining at 80 points. GT Amiga and Twister both picked up few points today, remaining in their respective positions, as do Matcore and Netrex, both of which failed to score today. GoSpeed Racing achieved their best team result since 2008, with a 2nd and 6th place, jumping them ahead of both Faster Than Speed and AT Racing. The next race will be the Grand Prix of Hungary, and you can watch that race live as it happens at SimRace TV on the 15th of July at 4 PM GMT. You can also check out Formula Sim Racing on both Facebook and Twitter, and you can join in on the FSR Fantasy League by following the link on screen. We hope you've enjoyed this presentation. I'm Simon Adebisi, and we'll see you in 4 weeks' time after the summer break for the next round of the 2012 Formula Sim Racing World Championship.